Have you ever really stopped to think about how something as massive and complex as a car actually gets built? I mean, it's not just about bolting some pieces together. It's like a masterpiece of coordination, a giant global puzzle. And it turns out every car maker uses a very similar secret playbook to solve it.
To really get your head around the sheer scale of this challenge, just start with this one number, 30,000. Yep, that's roughly how many individual parts, everything from the engine block down to the tiniest little screw, that have to come together perfectly to create just one car. Insane, right? So how in the world do they do it? How do they manage all of that complexity, not just for one car, but for millions of them? Well, it's not magic. It's a master plan, an incredible playbook for orchestrating a global symphony of suppliers and factories. And we're about to open it up and take a look inside. Okay, so first things first, our journey doesn't start on the assembly line with sparks flying. Nope. It begins way, way up high in the boardroom. This is the big picture strategic planning phase, where the whole operation gets its marching orders. It all kicks off with a concept called aggregate planning. Think of it as the 10,000-foot view. This is where a car maker looks at all the market forecasts, all the data, and decides, okay, over the next year or so, how many sedans are we going to build? How many SUVs? How many trucks? It's all about setting those big, ambitious targets for the whole company. But setting a goal, that's the easy part. Aggregate planning determines the what and the when, right? We're going to build 350,000 vehicles. Great. But capacity planning is that crucial reality check. It's the how. It's the part that forces you to ask the tough question, do we actually have the factory space, the workforce, and the machine time to hit those big numbers? One is the dream, the other is the dose of reality. And believe me, the stakes could not be higher. If you get this mismatch wrong, you're either burning millions of dollars on factories and workers that are just sitting idle, or you're leaving a huge pile of money on the table because you can't build cars fast enough to meet demand. Getting this balance right isn't just important, it's literally everything. All right, so the high-level plan is locked in. The mission now shifts. It's time to go out and get all those 30,000 parts. And this takes us from the quiet of the boardroom right into the bustling world of purchasing. Now, purchasing is so much more than just clicking buy. It's really got two different faces. You've got the strategic side, that's the long game. It's about finding the perfect partners, negotiating contracts that'll last for years, building those relationships. And then you have the operational side. That's the daily grind, placing the orders, tracking the shipments, making sure the trucks are on time, just keeping that river of parts flowing into the factory day in and day out. Now, to make all that purchasing work, you have to understand this one really key idea: independent demand. This is the demand for the final product, the car itself. How many people are going to want to buy a new red SUV next spring? Nobody knows for sure. It's a guess, right? A really, really educated forecast based on market trends, the economy, you name it. But here's where the magic happens. The second you forecast that independent demand, the second you decide you're going to build one car, you create this cascade of perfect certainty. If you build one car, you know you need exactly 4 wheels. You need 1 steering wheel and 2 headlights. See? This isn't a forecast anymore. It's just simple math. And this shift from guesswork to calculation is the absolute bedrock of the entire automotive supply chain. So, the parts have been ordered, they're arriving by the truckload, everything's going according to plan. But solving one problem immediately creates another one. What do you do with this mountain of parts that's now showing up at your factory door? This quote from an old factory manager, it just says it all. Can you imagine a multi-million-dollar assembly line grinding to a dead halt with hundreds of workers just standing around, all because you ran out of a simple 10-cent bolt? This is exactly why inventory management is a total obsession in the auto industry. So if it's so risky, you might be asking, why hold any inventory at all? Well, because it's not just a pile of costly parts. It's a strategic tool. It's the buffer that keeps different stages of production running smoothly. It's the shield that protects you from a supplier's shipment being late. And it's the lever that lets you save a ton of money by buying in bulk. So really, you can think of it as expensive but necessary insurance. So how do you manage 30,000 different kinds of parts? The secret is you don't treat them all the same. Smart companies use a system like ABC analysis, where you focus your attention where the money is. Your A items, think big-ticket stuff like engines or transmissions. They might only be 15% of your total parts, but they represent 80% of the cost. You track those things obsessively. But your C items, those 10-cent bolts, they might be half your parts, but they're cheap. So their control can be way simpler, maybe even automated. And that's it. That is the playbook in action. It's kind of like a 3-act drama. Act 1, the plan, where you set the big targets from 30,000 feet. Act 2, the parts, where you source every single component using that mix of forecasting and simple math. And finally, Act 3, the stockpile, where you meticulously manage every last piece to keep that assembly line humming. And that brings us right up to the future. We've spent a century perfecting this playbook for physical parts, but cars today are becoming rolling computers, defined more by their software than their engines. So the huge new challenge is this. How do you manage a supply chain of code, of over-the-air updates, of digital components? That's a question that's going to define the next chapter for this entire industry.